This week on Fargo, Episode 8. Nikki checks out the bowling alley, Yuri isn't the only bad guy with an animal mask, and Sai has a cup of tea with VM Varga. I'm Ryan Eric P on Twitter. Let me know what you think of Fargo, and also make sure to subscribe to GameSpot Universe. We're covering American Gods and Twin Peaks, and also Winter is Coming. GameSpot of Thrones will be back just in time for Season 7. Without further ado, let's jump into Episode 8 of Fargo. Episode 8 was packed with some brutal action, a whole lot of tension, and the supernatural that we've seen before in Fargo. Oh, and of course, more nods to the Coen brothers. We pick up with a little background on how Varga's men flipped over that prison transport bus. Just took a little homemade welding and some patience. We also found out that Yuri isn't the only one that likes to put on the animal disguise. We saw a pretty similar setup, bad guys hiding in the woods, from Fargo cinematographer Roger Deakins in the assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford. But those guys unfortunately didn't have the animal masks. And as some of us expected, Mr. Wrench came to the defense of Nikki and fought off Varga's men. He also really had no choice since, they're chained together. This entire sequence might have reminded you of the escaped convicts of the Coen brothers' Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? But even more so of the plot of the 1958 film The Defiant Ones. We then get a classic Fargo moment that we saw from the film. The poor innocent bystanders that drive by the scene of the crime only to get chased down and killed by the bad guys. The Fargo universe makes it clear. Luck swings in both directions, unfortunately. How about that fake cop character played by DJ Qualls? We didn't learn his name in the show, but from the IMDb page we know that his name is Gollum, which you can find in the Bible and also in Jewish folklore as a magical clay creature that is brought to life. That's just one of many religious references in this episode. We also get a telling moment from Yuri when he notices the Helga tattoo on Gollum's wrist.
I knew Helga once. All she do, talk.
That is, of course, a direct callback to the first episode when an innocent man is being questioned by the German interrogator for her murder. It took some time, but we finally got some more context to Season 3's opening act. Back to Nikki and Mr. Wrench, who have to get a little creative in order to survive. Not only does that include communicating in the snow, but also physically teaming up together to fight off Yuri and Gollum. I thoroughly enjoyed Yuri getting shot by the hunter's arrow while donning that wolf hat. I guess it's not always appropriate attire in Minnesota, especially in the woods. For anyone that believed Nikki was playing Ray, I confessed I was one of them, this episode proved us wrong. During the escape in the woods, Nikki is replaying the events in her head, the final words she shared with Ray before his death. Later on, when she meets Ray the cat, we realize that she did in fact love him. And how about Gollum's brutal death scene? Fargo always comes up with creative ways to kill off people in the snow. This entire sequence was filled with a whole lot of tension, and it was an awesome way for DJ Qualls to go out. I was surprised just how formidable Nikki and Mr. Wrench proved to be for these hired henchmen. I mean, even Yuri lost an ear. And just like that, Nikki and Mr. Wrench are saved. They're finally out of the woods and find themselves at a bowling alley straight out of The Big Lebowski. But this isn't your regular bowling alley, in any sense.
Have you been to this place before?
The bowling alley?
Is that what you see?
So it's the afterlife? Purgatory? I'm not entirely sure, and I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. The familiar Paul Moraine is welcomed back in Big Lebowski style. In fact, the shot is almost a mirror image of how Sam Elliott's Stranger was introduced in that film. It quickly becomes clear that Paul is much more than a traveling salesman that coincidentally ran into Glory in LA and Nikki outside of Minnesota. He seems to exist in a different dimension and knows all of Fargo's characters and their story. Is he God? A guardian angel? Satan? Is he the creator? He's some type of messenger, that's for sure. He gives Nikki a message to deliver to the quote wicked, which we can presume would be Varga. Furthermore, the name Paul Moraine is one of the many names given to a legendary biblical character, the Wandering Jew, who was cursed to walk the earth until the Second Coming. This was Season 3's UFO moment, when the supernatural helps restore some balance in this unjust world between good and evil. Nikki and Mr. Wrench say goodbye to Paul and are gifted their escape vehicle outside, the ironic German-made VW Beetle. That's when Yuri arrives at the bowling alley and heads straight to the bar covered in blood without an ear. Nothing that a few napkins and vodka can't fix, right? But Yuri has much more to worry about. Paul introduces himself and shares a message from Helga Albrecht and the Rabbi Nachman. Then Yuri sees the faces of all the lost spirits sent to torment him. It seems to be that Yuri's day of reckoning has come, and I'm not sure we'll see him again. And now for my biggest question from episode 8. Well, I'm kinda joking about this. Why in the hell would Sai accept a cup of tea from Varga? Especially after that coffee mug incident earlier in the season. Sai, what were you thinking? And just like that, Sai is poisoned and in a coma for the next 3 months. As time passes, we see the toll that Ray's death has had on Emmitt. He's ridden with guilt and believes he's being haunted by his dead brother. But that's a little too much supernatural for one episode. I actually think it's Nikki who's been laying low for the last few months and is screwing with Emmitt. And it totally worked.
My name's Emmitt Stussy. I want to confess.
Remember back to episode 4 and the Peter and the Wolf analogy. Emmitt is the bird and Gloria is Peter. In order to capture the wolf, aka Varga, Emmitt needs to team up with Gloria. He's finally ready to do that, but most of the damage is done. His perfect Minnesota nice life is over, and he's far from an innocent bystander in all of this. It's likely things don't end well for Emmitt either. Time now to shout out those of you in our YouTube comments. Last week we asked you how you thought Season 3 would end, and a few of you are holding out some hope for some favorite characters. Max Musterman and Cindy Staff both want to see Nikki survive this whole ordeal, and I hope so too. Despite the fact that she's done some horrible things, she's become one of the best reasons to watch Season 3. And Crazy Clark, I'm sorry, but judging by how he looked at the end of this episode, I don't think Sai will ever be the same. Also, you're not a loser. Appreciate the comments, guys. Thanks again for watching our Fargo recaps. We only have 2 episodes left. Leave me a comment on YouTube or hit me up on Twitter at RyanEricP and let me know what I missed. We'll see you next week for episode 9.